To be humble, to be kind, it is a giving of the peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And to be bold, to be brave, it is a thinking that the heart can still be saved. And the darkness can come quick, the danger's in the anger and in the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. And tell me what it is that you see, a world that's full of endless possibility. And heroes don't look like they used to, they look like you do. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley, where we gather at the intersection of arts, justice, and spirituality every week. I'm Reverend Marcus Leifert, and so glad to be with you here this morning. If you're visiting with us for the first time, we especially want to offer our welcome. We hope that no matter who you are or how you make a living, no matter whom you love or how you experience the sacred, no matter how old you are, you'll feel welcome among us here. Everyone's invited after the service to make your way all the way across the atrium into the social hall for lunch. Hope you'll stay for conversation and food, connection with this beloved community. If there's anything on your heart that you'd like read aloud during the service, there's a memory book at the back of the sanctuary. You're always welcome to write a joy or sorrow, grief or gratitude there, and we'll name it aloud during the service. Or you can simply light a candle for a private memory or prayer. We also write super cards each Sunday, these nice big pieces of paper you'll find just to the left outside the sanctuary. Everyone's invited to sign those to send our wishes to those who could use a little love in our community. We acknowledge as we gather that we are here in the East Bay on Huichuyun, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. And we hope that the spiritual ancestors of this land and the current inhabitants who descended from them will understand that we want to be good partners, good stewards, good guests as we learn what it means to be the newest people to this land. We're talking in this worship series about holy habitats and holy inhabitants, and we've reached that part of the arc where we have to confront that there are species that invade. And plot spoiler, it's us. We're the species that invades. So welcome to worship. We're gonna talk about that more today. But would you rise in body or in spirit? And you'll see that you're going to find out what they are a little bit later. There's some baskets in the pews, and they have art supplies. Catherine's going to tell you about it, but we're thinking about getting art supplies out on a cart outside the sanctuary each week. So look for that next week outside the sanctuary if you want to do something to fidget with, create during the service. If you have ideas for what that might be, talk to me or Catherine. But let's rise in body or spirit. We're going to, before we sing that first hymn, just greet one another. Let them know, good morning, it's good to see you.
And hear the earth call, feel thy deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of the suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend.
an amazing instrument. If you were born in the month of September, I'm going to invite you to come on up to the chancel. If you are willing, if you're willing to have a moment up here, we'd love you to come on up and come help light our chalice this morning. We believe in our tradition. Come on all the way up. Our tradition, we believe that it's a blessing that each of us was born. And so we just want to take a moment to honor that you, out of the mystery of life, came into being, and we are glad and grateful that you are. Would you help light the chalice while Catherine reads a chalice lighting?
As we gather in this sacred space, we light our chalice as a symbol of unity. Yet we know that even in this sanctuary, we are often strangers to each other. We know that even in this community, many stories remain hidden and untold. We know these pews hold the memories of sometimes sharp disagreements and differences. And still, we celebrate with each other. We grieve each other's losses. We create moments of joy together. We covenant with each other. We love each other. May this tiny flame remind us of both the fragility and the strength of this chosen community. May it awaken a spirit of curiosity in our hearts as we commit anew to listen to each other's truths and remember that we depend on each other more than we know. May it be so. So everyone, I hope, has gotten a little card. Yes, everybody has a card. If you don't have a card, we have more available, and I'm sure a child will be happy to bring you one. If you find yourself wanting to, I think we have extra. You'll also notice there are crayons or markers or colored pencils in the pews. And so I encourage you to use this time to color in your little piece of paper. Over the course of the next week, I'm going to collect all these, so just leave them in the pews when you're done. We'll collect them, and then I'm going to put them back together into 4 different big things. So we'll see our work together next week. Very fun. So our story today is a retelling, an adaptation of Old Turtle and the Broken Truth by John J. Muth. And one night in a land far from here, but yet not so different from here, a truth falls from the stars. And as this truth falls, it breaks into 2, and one piece shoots off into the sky and disappears, and the other falls to the ground. Now, the animals in the forest have watched this happen, and they come over to this piece of the truth, and Crow picks it up and looks at it and puts it back down because it feels broken and incomplete. And one by one, all the other animals do the same. They pick it up, but it feels broken and incomplete, so they put it back down. And then one day, a human being is walking along, and he stumbles over the truth. And he picks it up, and he reads what is written on it, and it says, "You are loved." This makes him feel warm and fuzzy inside, and so he takes it home to his village, and it becomes their prized possession. It makes them sparkle. They make a space in the middle of the village, and they display it there. It is the most important thing in their village. You are loved. And so this goes on for some time, and they love this truth. They call it the truth that has fallen from the sky. But increasingly, they find themselves a little uncomfortable with people who don't live in their village, which is becoming a town and then a city. And so they become mistrustful of outsiders who don't have the truth. And the people who do not live in the city want the truth. They want "you are loved." And so disagreements begin. Fights begin. Violence breaks out. Suddenly there are wars over the truth of "you are loved." Now, one young girl in the village feels that this is just wrong. How can people fight over the truth? And so she decides to go on a journey and talk to the being that is the wisest that she knows, Old Turtle. And so she sets out on a journey over the mountain of imagining and around the river of wondering why and through the forest of finding out until she meets Old Turtle. And she explains what has happened to Old Turtle. How can people be fighting over the truth, "you are loved"? And Old Turtle explains to her the night where a truth fell from the sky and broke in half, and says, "You have only a piece of the truth." And Old Turtle gives her a stone to take back to her village. And Old Turtle says, maybe this will help. Maybe this will bring people back together. And so the girl, brave young woman, she sets back out through the forest and around the river and over the mountain, and she arrives back into her city, and she says, "I have spoken to Old Turtle, and I have some answers. We can stop the violence." Friends, no one listened to her. They had the truth. Why should they listen to a young girl? And so she went into the room where the most prized possession was held, and she took the glass off the top, and she put the stone that Old Turtle had given her next to the prized possession. They fit perfectly. The truth had been reunited, and it said, "You are loved, and so are they." And eventually, slowly, they began to understand, and the world was healed. May this be true for us as well. May we rise in body and spirit and sing the children out. They will be helping in the kitchen today, so that's where you can find them at the end of service. So rise in body and spirit, and kids, let's go do some service.
The ocean refuses no river, no river. The ocean refuses no river, no river. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Let's sing one more time. The ocean refuses no river, no river. The ocean refuses no river, no river. Hallelujah, 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 I invite you to rest a little more comfortably in your seat. To bring your awareness, your attention down into your own body, your breath, your connection down to this good, this holy earth. Foxtails demand to be weeded outside my front door. The neighbor's dog whines and pleads. Dinner needs to be prepared and dishes piled up need to be cleaned. The passion flower has grown thuggish and needs to be pruned back, but the Gulf fritillary butterflies are still flitting about in its flowers in their bright orange invasive glory. The world cries out to be saved, and in my foolishness, I think it must be talking to me. Wars rage, and leaders succumb, becoming numb agents of the status quo. The cost of power too often seems to be to trade one's moral compass for political expediency. A state orchestrates war crimes using exploding pagers. Breaths shallow and quicken, waiting for the next bomb to fall, the next school children to be shot, the next headline to drop. The world cries out to be saved, and we don't know what we can do, even though it surely is talking to us. It's so hard not to take it all inside, to stay in touch with the world without letting it invade. Getting swept up in the frenzy of flailing action. So hard to protect our own inner acres from the violent seeds scattered all around us. So I get down on my knees in the dirt and pray as my fingers scramble to find the roots. Let me make of this small patch a blessing. Let me tend the acre of my heart with this care. Let me see an earth connected inner acre by inner acre, a corridor made through this ravaging world by way of people who have set their lives to planting justice and peace. May this time of quiet, of stillness among us, nurture our inner acres and the corridors between us. In this community of care and witness, we hold one another through the seasons of our lives. We light candles and lift up names. Today we celebrate with someone gratitude, grateful for a day off, an adventure in Point Reyes with a kind colleague. And with Alice, so grateful for 20 years of marriage and 22 together. I now have known Gregory Lemieux longer than I haven't. Can't wait to see what the next 20 will bring. And someone else invites us, as so many of us are, holding close victims of genocide and war. for that which has been named aloud and all that yet remains in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May we know that what each of us brings to this sanctuary, holds in our homes, is held in the loving embrace of this community, and by that deeper, nameless love, that love that cannot and will not let us go. May it be so, and amen. Let's sing together, Our World is One World. I love pampas grass. I think it's so beautiful. This time of year, every sanctuary that I've led worship in, our ministers' retreats, I just want to fill with pampas grass. It's got that light and air. It feels like spirit is there. And the only problem is that pampas grass is evil. That's such a one small problem. So, for those of you who might have been concerned, great care was taken in transporting this pampas grass to this room today. No little seeds were scattered, or at least as few as we could manage. Pampas grass, French broom, Scotch broom, I hear are constant threats on our hillside here. Egg leaf spurge, the noxious plant that doesn't provide any nutritional value to any of the species around it here. I don't know if you, like me, have lived most of your life oblivious to the great evils of invasive species all around us. But if you'd like to no longer be oblivious, read Doug Talmey's Nature's Best Hope. You know, these invasive species, they are the result of life moving with humans alongside our migrations around the world faster than ecosystems' natural ability to adapt, to cope with change. An early example, 8,000 or 9,000 years ago, I understand, wild boars were brought in Sicily and shrews in Cyprus. There have been problems ever since. But as then the engine of modernity sped up human migration, invasive species began to wreak havoc around the world at a rate never before seen. Foreign plants forcing out native wildlife just as colonizers decimated native populations and dismantled their cultures. And how quickly these foreign invaders feel like natural inhabitants. Michelle, the other day when we were talking about this service, talked about what would the Bay Area be without eucalyptus trees? Or earthworms and honeybees, neither of which native to this continent. This process of invasion, it laces itself through our lives, right? We all invade one another one way or another. In our workplaces, in our families, perhaps especially with those closest to us. And at the largest scale, this human phenomenon of invading is what we call empire. And it takes many forms, but empire, generally speaking, follows the logic of monoculture, the same logic of the egg leaf spurge that just wants to have one thing take on over. And it does this in a variety of different ways. This is what James Baldwin was talking about when he wrote The Price of the Ticket. Anybody read that essay? He's imagining, how did racism come to exist in America the way that it does? Because he's noticing that while white privilege does provide all these material advantages, these increased accesses to safety and comfort, it does so at a cost. The cost in vicious harm and vivid horror that is borne by the global majority, by people of color, is reflected in also a cost to white folks' integrity, to our moral and spiritual wholeness. And near the end of that essay, Baldwin says, go back to where you started, or as far back as you can. Examine all of it, travel your road again, and tell the truth about it. Sing or shout or testify or keep it to yourself, but know whence you came. But know whence you came. His idea is that this construction of whiteness that we have inherited, it relies on a cultural amnesia, a forgetting of traditional practices, of the ways of being together, of ritual and food and music, an erasure of culture. Wave after wave of immigrant had to learn to become white. And later, Baldwin writes, later in the midnight hour, the missing identity aches. The price the white American paid for his ticket was to become white. This incredibly limited, not to say dim-witted ambition has choked many to death here. This invasive species logic of whiteness. But we find that same logic in our economic system. Back in the early to mid-20th century, there was a group of thinkers in Germany. Many of them, they called themselves neo-Marxists. They were known as the Frankfurt School. And one influential among them was Herbert Marcuse, who warned of what he called the commodification of desire. said as the power of advertising was beginning to come clear, this was that Mad Men era of advertising, that his observation was that no longer was it even the means to satisfy human desires that were being bought and sold in the marketplace, but the creation and shape of those desires themselves. Right? And this was quite a while ago. It's gotten a lot worse since. How many of you can remember a jingle or an image from television ads when you were a kid? You still, oh yeah, basically all of us. You still wake up sometimes with that, I don't know, Eggo waffles. That was my childhood. What we want, the images in our minds of happiness and satisfaction, these are commodities that ad makers have been paid to build in us from an early age. And now, of course, human attention, we're going to talk a lot about this. We're going to have a whole worship series talking about it in the new year. But human attention, it's one of the most valuable resources out there. And so the technology to buy and sell and manipulate our attention, it's getting sophisticated way beyond anything I understand. And the impact on our souls, on our psyches, on human culture, it can't be overstated. I'm terrified of the commodification of attention like I'm terrified of climate change and war. And I know that we all are living already daily with its effect on our inner lives. I remember when Henry was an infant, we were doing that babbling back and forth together one day on the bed, that babbling that you do with infants, where there are no words, but there's so much connection and eye contact and this incredible being coming to life before me. And after a minute or so, I was horrified to discover that his attention span was longer than mine. As I grabbed for my phone. And it was a wake-up call, but it's been a struggle ongoing, how to resist this brilliantly crafted invasion into our inner lives. So those Hebrew prophets we were talking about last week, they would notice these things and they'd say when the people had been seduced or oppressed into colluding with empire, and they would call the people back into covenant with each other, with the earth, with God. Jeremiah was one of them. It was the Babylonian Empire had conquered Jerusalem, destroyed the temple in 586, and what he noticed was that there was a vulnerability in the people to the empire because their practices, their ways of being had been undermined. Their spiritual depths were not protecting them from the forces of empire. And he called them with that, they were not, it was not a compassionate communication or nonviolent communication, the prophets. He was saying, you've been worshiping other gods, neglecting justice, breaking your covenant with Yahweh. This is what has made you vulnerable to foreign domination. And the new covenant that Jeremiah heard God speaking to him was to have a covenant written on the heart, not the laws of Moses, but a covenant that would be kept in the heart no matter where the people went. And I think it's true that tending to our spiritual lives, that inner acre, it can be like weeding the invasive species that are planted among us and nurturing at our heart a covenant that goes deeper than words, nurturing what naturally belongs. And here I've got a crackpot theory for you. I'm going to take a bit of a leap, and so I want to tell you why I'm taking this leap, because I'm always wondering, thinking about if our inner lives and our bigger world machinations, the political systems around us, are all part of the same human system, part of this same ecosystem affecting one another. How might that be? What would make that make sense? And so what I've been thinking about is all these folks who have been convinced that the suffering in their lives is because of foreign invaders, immigrants, coming to our country and taking their jobs. A colleague, Sherry Hostetter, talks about how people believe in conspiracy theories because there is a conspiracy out there to exploit our labor, our lives, our time, and our attention. There is a conspiracy. People are oppressed by this economic system. People are invaded in their most sacred inner beings. It's just some people have been taught to focus that pain of the invasion outward at immigrants crossing a border. We are a nation whose borders have been invaded, but it's our personal boundaries, the borders inside, the sanctity of our inner lives ravaged by the logic of an empire, an economic system that has relentlessly marketed to us, that has discovered that we are not just the consumers, but have even more value to exploit as commodities. Our attention, our desires, a natural resource to be shaped and harnessed for an unsustainable, I would even say cancerous form of growth. How will we live in a time like this? We'll talk more about Doug Tallamy's vision next week. He sees us creating homegrown national forest, national park, backyard to backyard, church campus to university to hospital, removing those invasive species and making room for native habitats. Zimmy Forrest is a basket weaver. She's in Australia, and she's built a business now weaving caskets. She weaves them out of the cat's claw vine, this incredibly invasive vine that tears down native trees, ruins native ecosystems. She's removing it, weaving it, casket by casket, into a ritual use for burying this colonization, this modernity that we've inherited. Robin Kimmerer wrote that beautiful book, Braiding Sweetgrass. Tells the story of Nanaposo, the first man, this Ojibwe legend of the very first man who was told and who knew that when he came to this place, this Turtle Island, that he was an immigrant. And that his job was first to get to know each plant and animal here, to walk in a way that each step is a greeting to Mother Earth. Kimmerer writes this. She says, after all these generations since Columbus, some of the wisest of native elders still puzzle over the people who came to our shores. They look at the toll on the land and they say, the problem with these new people is that they don't have both feet on the shore. One is still on the boat. They don't seem to know whether they're staying or not. She says this same observation is heard from some contemporary scholars who see in the social pathologies and relentlessly materialist culture the fruit of homelessness, a rootless past. A rootless past giving birth to the fruit of homelessness. And then she says this, she says, America has been called the home of second chances for the sake of peoples and the land. The urgent work of the second man may be to set aside the ways of the colonist and become indigenous to place. But can Americans, as a nation of immigrants, learn to live here as if we were staying, with both feet on the shore? May it be so, and amen.
Hello, my name is Beth Jurdy, and I'm a member of our Board of Trustees. In our covenantal community, we share the responsibility for pursuing our mission by giving generously of our 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. I invite you to support the work of our church by giving electronically, scanning the QR code on the back of your badge, or finding an envelope in the pew ahead of you like this, putting in a check or some cash, and then putting in one of the black boxes out in the atrium for your donation. Every month, we have a special Good Neighbor partner whom we share the plate with. And this month, it's the Read Aloud volunteer program. Many of our people here from UUCB volunteer in this, which fosters the love and joy of learning in children through reading and storytelling. So will you please join me now in dedicating ourselves to our mission? We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service. Thank you.
Good morning, buenos dias. My name is Charis Tomador, and I'm your Connections Coordinator. If you're new to our church and you'd like to learn more about how to get connected, I welcome you to find me or any of the greeters at the welcome table in the atrium after the service. To find out what's happening in the life of our community, you can always check the news link on our homepage of our website, where you'll find our weekly email newsletter, The Week Ahead, which includes a list of activities, announcements, and contact information. This week, I'd like to especially lift up that today at 2 p.m. is our first fundraiser concert of the season, Mozart's Coronation Mass in C major. A live stream is available. You can buy tickets on our website or at the door. This coming Saturday, September 28th, we have our Climate Justice Revival Workshop, when over 300 UU congregation communities are coming together to inspire, transform, reawaken, and recommit ourselves to the work of justice. And after today's concert, we're continuing our Get Out the Vote postcard writing party to send to voters in vote suppression states to ensure they can exercise their right to vote. Please leave your coloring sheets in the pews. Catherine will collect them afterwards. Now let's rise once more in body or spirit and join in singing our closing song. Gracias.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Oh, so is life. Water made the river, river washed the mountain. Fire made the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Oh, so is life a bati so is life. Oh, so is life a bati so is life. Oh, so is life a bati so is
Might you reach out a hand and touch a shoulder or an elbow, be connected. We are one body and we depend on each other more than we know. May we use this moment of turning as the summer turns to autumn, as the days begin to darken, to remember that we still are the light. We can ourselves help turn the world around. May it be so, and amen.